And want to welcome you into a brand new edition of the RSL Show. I'm Alex Napoles. That's Josh Clark. No Carson Lantz today, but we're here to bring you the latest and the greatest with Real Salt Lake. And we got a couple games to catch up on, Josh. First of all, this Real Salt Lake team losing on the road at Dallas, winning at home against Houston, winning at home against Colorado. Real Salt Lake sitting in third place, and plenty of stuff happening around Major League Soccer. But of course, let's start with Real Salt Lake. And let's start with a little bit of, I guess, worry, something that really worried me, which was that 3-1 loss to FC Dallas and how poor Real Salt Lake was in transitional defense and how poor they looked on the road against FC Dallas.
Yeah, it was almost a comically bad game, right? Like, yes. I kind of mentioned it before we started, but we were like, let's talk about it on here. But in my opinion, probably the worst game we've played this year.
Was it that, or was it at Galaxy? Because I think both of them go pretty hand in hand. I think a lot of the issues that you saw on the road against Galaxy are very similar issues to what you saw against FC Dallas.
I would say it's still worse because I feel like we, at least against LA, I still felt like we could win that, right?
Yeah.
Outside of the referee kind of giving us the old do-over. I was going to swear there, but I didn't.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just think the LA game, we were in it a lot more than we were against Dallas. Dallas, we just looked flat. We looked disinterested. We looked bad, in my opinion.
I think in both games, much better second half performance from Real Salt Lake, but they obviously couldn't do and didn't do enough to overturn the mistakes that they made at the first half in both of those games. And then, of course, against the FC Dallas one, I would probably say that it is the worst performance, and you're probably right because of the transition defense and how bad Real Salt Lake was in allowing those opportunities from Dallas in the first place. I think it was that second goal that Dallas scored where they hit on a quick counterattack. Absolutely nobody closes them down. Diego Luna is the one defender that you have back, tracking back to try to make a play, and then they just run right past Diego Luna.
Which no shade to Diego Luna, but like that's the last guy you want.
Yeah,
there. You know what I mean?
Right. And then in the first goal, there is no defense.
No,
there is no back line. Caliscan is the last man back, and everybody is pushed up so high up the field that FC Dallas have the entire Real Salt Lake's entire defensive half to just run rampant, and they score their opening goal, then the very similar fashion the second one, very similar fashion the third one, and
it was Groundhog Day each goal.
Absolutely, right? Each one in transition moments.
Yeah, I don't know how many times we're gonna say this until it actually happens, right? Then we can shut up, but we really, really need another center back. The fact that we look so bad defensively when Jay Glad is out, like that's such a problem. We don't look great when he's in. We look horrible when he's out, and we're not going to win anything, man, if that's the case.
To have that much of a drop off when Justin Glad misses a game was crazy. Yeah, it's insane. And two, I think it needs to be said that. And this is something that we'll talk about here because you have two really impressive results at home, but the road form for Real Salt Lake recently has been a lot worse than it was to start off the season. So
right. It's the opposite of last year, right?
Yeah.
We're actually winning at home now, which is great. I do appreciate that. But we got to replicate, winning away from home as well while keeping, the Riot an actual fortress.
Whatever it was, or however you're able to find and replicate the magic that you have at home and the magic that you have in some really, really positive results at America First Field, you got to figure out how to take that on the road, especially coming up this weekend when you have a road game to end the first portion of the season right before you get into the World Cup break. And then maybe after the World Cup break, it's a whole brand new season. We forget everything that happened in the first part of the season, and then this conversation doesn't matter because that's kind of what it feels like.
Right, but I think, this last game before this break is pivotal, right? Yeah. You have to go out on a high note.
Absolutely.
You have to.
Going back to going back to that Galaxy game, you look at the final stretch of 5 games for Real Salt Lake. You have 3 at home, 2 on the road. And all 3 at home look absolutely winnable. So we'll jump into now the Houston conversation, where Real Salt Lake again at home look really, really well. A little bit of a rotated lineup for Real Salt Lake against this in a midweek match against the Houston Dynamo. Dynamo also rotating a little bit, but you run back the same 3 that had a really rough game against FC Dallas, and I'm talking about DeAndre Edlin, Philip Quinton, and Sam Junka, and they look a lot better at home.
Right.
But there's still, moments in that first half where Houston were the better team, and they had some really good opportunities. But Rafa Cabral, being Rafa Cabral, makes some fantastic saves.
Right. And, that game could have gone either way, right? It could have gone like Dallas, and it didn't. So we got lucky. And our offense, looked a lot better too when they had their moments. I think that's a big factor as well, right? It's that conversation we've been having. If we're not putting, the ball in the back of the net, can our defense keep us in games? And these are the examples that we were looking at, right? So, but getting hit 3 times in transition is painful. It's painful.
Houston was very, I think, opportunistic when it came to shots from outside the 18. And that's probably where they found their most danger, their most success. And even, a couple of balls that played in behind that the defense weren't necessarily ready for. But Real Salt Lake holds well, heads into the halftime break at 0-0. Disappointing first half from Real Salt Lake. There was a couple players that did stand out. I thought Dylan Griffin did a good job against Houston, especially in the second half. Dominic Marchuk starting and Gozo pushing up a little bit higher into the attack. First half, I was disappointed with Gozo because he was kind of, and this is probably credit to Houston, because I think all the attention when it came to Real Salt Lake trying to push the ball forward was on Xavier Gozo.
Yeah, he's also, asked to be doing a different role in that game too, right?
Yeah.
He's found the success on the right wing, getting into that space, getting in behind, where you're kind of putting him in the middle, where you're asking him to be a little more creative and have a little more interchange play. I think that has part to that as well.
And that was really missing. That was really missing in the first half for Real Salt Lake. And I also think you had a really disappointing start again from Victor Olatunji.
Yeah, I mean, he just hasn't had the minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I get, because Sergi Solans, outside of his 1v1, is incredible. Right? So, I don't know. I hope Victor can find some form without it being because Solans is out with an injury or something.
Right.
So,
and I think that's a little bit of an issue that you're seeing right now with Victor, and you're seeing right now with Sergi kind of taking control of that starting role. And so far, both of the starts that we've seen Victor Olatunji have this season, they've been a little lackluster. Talking about the Galaxy game, talking about this Houston game in that first half.
He kind of feels like Julio in a lot of ways, where when he'd start games, it wasn't that impressive, but he was the super sub, right? And I feel like that might be Victor's role for the time being, right?
Yeah.
Sergi, in my opinion, he's almost not droppable at this point.
I would agree, which is massive credit to Sergi Solans, man. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? I would not have put money on that at the beginning of the
year. Second half, wrestling makes a couple of changes. One specifically heading into that second half was Diego Luna subs on at the halftime break for Morgan Giavogi. And that immediately changes the complexion of the game. Why? Because I think now when Diego Luna subs in, the Houston defense is all over Diego Luna. That frees up Xavier Gozo. In turn, that leads
in his position.
That turn and leads to Xavier Gozo getting a lot more creative. That in turn opens up space for Xavier Gozo. And you see it in the second half. It first starts off with probably the best single-handedly second half performance we've ever seen from DeAndre Edlin in a Real Salt Lake jersey.
Yeah.
First, he forces the own goal by the long throw in. There's a Houston player trying to clear it up at the near post, heads it back, and then Holmes puts it in his own net. to open up the scoring. And I remember, Josh, we were texting, and that was like, yeah, you know what? It makes sense that it's an own goal. Of course,
Yeah,
it would be an own
absolutely.
goal.
Absolutely. I know this wasn't technically a set piece, but we still haven't scored from one, correct?
You were right. You were
Yeah.
right. And
That would
also
have been the
not
closest. That would have been the closest.
very good at defending set pieces.
No, we'll get into that with Colorado.
Absolutely. But I mean, if you know, going back to the old adage and something that Pablo Mastroeni says all the time, goals change game, and that definitely changed the game for Real Salt Lake, because as soon as the own goal goes in, Real Salt Lake's up 1-0 at home. Houston's on the road. They start getting a lot more aggressive with it, and so they start pushing numbers forward, which again in turns opens up a lot of space for Xavier Gozo, and then Xavier Gozo scores 2 goals in the second half to give Real Salt Lake a 3-0 lead at home over Houston, and everybody online is screaming for Mauricio Pochettino to be paying attention, screaming and begging for Mauricio Pochettino to put Xavier Gozo on his World Cup roster.
I mean, the roster's pretty big you can bring at this point, man. What's it going to hurt?
Yeah.
You know, have him be that guy that, you know, probably isn't going to play, but there might be a situation that he can work a miracle for you. I think he's earned it. I know he hasn't had like a traditional camp or anything, but I mean, come on.
Swiss Army knife, man.
Come on.
You can use one of those in the World Cup.
Right. And to be completely frank, and like, obviously I love the U.S. men's national team, but outside of, I don't know, your starting 11, is there really anyone that's like a technical lock that you're just like, we got to have this guy? You know what I mean?
I would agree, and I think a lot of what I'm seeing right now online is mostly the Gio Reyna and Gozo comparison, because the reality is, I mean, Gio Reyna isn't having the season that he imagined, isn't having the season that anybody imagined leading up into a World Cup, where he's barely getting minutes at Gladbach. He left Dortmund, right, to go to Gladbach in order to set himself up this season for a campaign that would earn him a spot at the World Cup. And so the debate right now is, do you take Gio Reyna or do you take Xavier Gozo?
Well, and is the only reason to take Gio Reyna is because of his experience with the national team and he's playing in Germany, versus Gozo, who's in form,
right,
banging in goals, gonna get a move to Europe this summer. Let someone else try.
Yeah.
He's also not a prima donna, so
I also wish that they would release the 55 provisional list roster.
At minimum, just so we can see if there's a chance.
Because if Gozo's in there, then there's a chance.
I think each game, the chance is just increasing.
Truly right now, Josh. Truly right now, today on May 20th, is Xavier Gozo a top 55 American player? Remove your bias. Remove the Real Salt Lake out of it. Is Xavier Gozo a top 55 player in U.S. men's soccer right now?
I was looking at an ESPN article today about like the top 20, not MLS, but U.S. men's national players at the moment. Based purely on that list, yes.
I would agree.
If I'm going on current form, absolutely.
If I'm looking at top 55 U.S. men's national team players right now, right, the 55 provisional man roster, he has to be on it. There is no doubt in my mind that Xavier Gozo is a top 55 player right now.
Right. And especially in that position. We're so not deep in that position, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Of course, I think also Luno is probably on that 55-man list, and I think the reality is I wish that they would just put out the provisional roster, so then that way everybody could see that Xavier Gozo has a chance, because that is your, if you make that 55 provisional roster, you have all you want to do is have that chance, and if you're on that list, then there is that chance, there is that possibility for Xavier Gozo to make it, and the U.S. Men's Soccer Federation should have released it. I think by now it's too late, because I think in 6 days you'll have the full roster that's set and it comes out. But I'm very, very curious to see if Gozo's on that provisional list. And I think there was the assistant for the men's national team, Jesus Perez, one of Pochettino's assistants was on MLS 360 talking about the provisional roster. He said it was set, and I was wishing and hoping that the desk would ask to see if what they thought about Xavier Gozo and see where he was at, but they didn't. And so I guess we'll find out here in 6 days whether or not Gozo makes it.
Okay, so top 50 U.S. men's national team players for the World Cup. This is an article. I'm going to skip like the top 25.
Okay.
I'm not going to consider traditional, your center backs, your midfielders. Is Xavier Gozo better than Paul Rothrock?
That's a good, yeah.
Paul Rothrock's at number 22.
At 22, Paul Rothrock.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Jesus Ferreira, 24. I know he's a forward, right? But still. Kalani Kosa Renzi from the Seattle Sounders at right back.
What's up with all these Seattle players? Sounds like
Snyder Brunel from the Seattle Sounders, number 27.
What?
Yep. Let's see. Let's just get a little farther down. 36, Tate Johnson, fullback for the Whitecaps. Is Xavier Gozo better than him?
I would say yes.
We'll throw a midfielder in there. Mark Delgado from LAFC, number 38.
Oh. I feel like that's a tough one to compare because they're both very different stylistically.
Absolutely, but I'm just going off midfield, right?
Yeah. I think...
Timothy Tillman for LAFC, number 41.
Yeah, Tillman hasn't been in form all season long.
Daniel Lovitz, number 42.
Oh, yes. Gozo's better than Lovitz.
Gio Reyna, number 43.
Going out form, I'd have to give it a Gozo, man.
Yeah.
What has Gio Reyna done this season?
Preston Judd at number 50.
You know what, though? That's a good shout because Judd is single-handedly carrying the San Jose Earthquakes right now.
Sure, but still, I don't know. This list is... Don't love it.
I'm very surprised by how much love the Seattle Sounder players are getting.
It's ESPN for you.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes more sense.
It's crazy.
I think you did name off some players on there that I would absolutely 100% say that Xavier Gozo is better right now than Johnson, than I forgot some of the other. Oh, Timothy Tillman.
Yeah.
If it was Malik Tillman, I'd give it to Malik.
Different story. Malik Tillman wasn't even on that top 50.
He's not?
Well, I don't know. I scrolled through the first.
Oh, okay.
Pretty quickly.
I was like, "There's no way, dude. He has to be. He's one of the better U.S. men's players right now."
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah. But I mean, just going through that little exercise, Xavier Gozo is 1,000% one of the top 55 players in U.S. men's soccer.
Right. Diego Luna wasn't even in that list.
I would have to say Diego right now is the top 55.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's clearly going to be on the roster based on the marketing, right?
He's in everything, man. You can't go.
If he's not, how embarrassing is that?
You can't go anywhere right now without seeing Diego Luna, man. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's cool.
There was a tweet by Hayden Nilsson from over there at the Royal Riot. He was at Disney this weekend, and Diego Luna's front and center at the Disney store, and as they get ready for the World Cup, right?
It's wild.
Yeah. Good old RSL player, front and center at the Disney store.
So speaking of Gozo and Luna, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that we've seen them play their last game at Rio Tinto State, or the Riot, America First Field.
Wow.
Think about it.
I know.
It's not out of the realm of possibilities.
I don't think they're the only ones on that list, Josh.
I don't think they are either, but
if Sanabria makes a World Cup roster, we'll jump into Juanma Sanabria here too, and specifically in the Colorado game because he was fantastic. But if Sanabria makes the World Cup roster, which right now I'm very confident that he is going to be on Uruguay's final 26, there is a very good possibility he moves on a lot sooner than I think anybody would have expected.
Yep. I really hope the front office is ready to bring in some reinforcements immediately.
Yes.
Because those three vital. I mean, we saw when Luna came on versus Houston, right? Like,
Right.
vital.
The difference that he made in that Houston game was, I think, obviously, like, he doesn't end up on the score sheet, right? He doesn't score. He did get a header, but that was called back by
But he opened the space for Gozo. You
right,
know what I mean?
right. He's not on the score sheet against Houston, but he was probably one of the more important players on the field when it came to that Houston game. Juan Masanabria, same thing can be said. Wasn't on the score sheet against Houston, but his play against Houston was fantastic. DeAndre Edlin, he's not leaving anytime soon, but man, how important was he against Houston?
He was big. He was big against Colorado too.
Yeah, and specifically looking at Luna, specifically losing at Sanabria, specifically losing at Gozo, your three hopefuls to make it to the World Cup. If they're on the final roster, which two of those I'm pretty confident will be, one of those Xavier Gozo, I'm still kind of will he won't he situation.
I'm more confident that he'll be gone in the next window, though.
Yes.
Between the three, two are going to make the World Cup. One's for sure gone.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree. However, though, the front office and people like Pablo Mastroeni, the decision makers, people in charge, and people who make those decisions of who stays, who goes, and right, people who have that power, they've put out there in the last couple of weeks feelers, I guess, if you will, about the departure of some of these players. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was Pablo Mastroeni basically saying, "Hey, look, we learned our mistake when we let Andres Gomez go in the summer."
Yeah, it's such a gamble, though. I mean, we
It's
talked
a
about it with
massive
him.
gamble.
Gozo could come back and not be in form whatsoever. He could get hurt, right?
Right.
I don't think he's this kind of guy, but he could be very sour that he didn't get his opportunity to leave.
Yeah.
And force his way out another way, right? Like, it's such a gamble. If an offer comes in that's substantial and it's something the player wants, especially our young guys, where we're trying to continue to build, this reputation as a come to play, and you're going to get your move, you have to back that up, and you got to let him fly, right? Yeah. I don't know, man.
I think
it's risky. Either way, it's risky.
I think either way, you're in a really tough spot.
Yep.
Because on one hand, like, you're 1,000% right. Like, you got to learn from things like losing a key player in the middle of your season, like an Andres Gomez, and how that much derailed Real Salt Lake season. On top of all the drama that was happening behind the scenes with the other Colombian on the roster.
Right.
But I think the main root of the downfall of Real Salt Lake that 2024 season, despite it being one of the best seasons historically points-wise for Real Salt Lake, the downfall came from Gomez leaving. And Pablo Mastroeni recognizes that.
I mean, I would argue more that it was Chicho's drama and complete dip in form. I think if he could have stayed Chicho, we would have been just fine.
That's going to be, I think, a massive what if for every Real Salt Lake fan.
Everyone forever, right? But
yeah,
you can't ruin a guy's confidence or make him hate the club, because then he's not gonna turn out anyway, right? Yeah. Like, it's just such a risky decision in so many ways.
Mastroeni was very candid. He had a conversation with our guy David James on his show leading up to the Colorado game, and maybe it was the Dallas game, I can't remember exactly, but he had a very candid conversation about learning from Xavier Gozo, learning from Andres Gomez, and letting him go in the middle of the season, and how I guess right now it seems like the club's trying to tiptoe a really fine line of when can we let Xavier Gozo go? When should we let Xavier Gozo go? And that's going to be really interesting to see how they approach it. I think when it comes to both the Luna and Gozo situation, I think you can afford to lose one in the summer. You can't afford to lose both.
Nope.
I think, and going back to the Colorado game that you just saw this past weekend, I think that you can find some success without one on the field.
Right. But losing both would be detrimental. Luckily,
pack it up.
Luckily, we're going to be switching off this playing through the summer schedule, so this won't be an issue in the coming seasons, right?
I told you guys in the group chat, Josh, if it was me and I had the power to make that decision, I would try to time it up perfectly to when the calendar switches.
Yep.
Because then you can, plan your preseason with bringing in Gozo's replacement, but you can go up to that shortened, the end of the shortened MLS season when the calendar switches, and you still can count on Xavier Gozo. I think that would be perfect for, the Real Salt Lake fan perspective, and I think it would be perfect from the standpoint of you don't have to worry about losing Xavier Gozo halfway through the season, but you call it a major gamble.
I do.
Yeah,
I
it
do.
is. It is.
I do.
No matter what,
It takes one hamstring pull to derail a transfer, man.
right. No matter if he goes this summer, no matter if he goes, at the end of next season or whenever that case may be, no matter when he leaves, it's going to be a gamble for Real. So like with how he's playing, with how he's performing, but I do agree, like it's a fine line of figuring out when to let him go and when to try to keep hold of him to make sure that one, you can stay competitive, one, you can go on and try to achieve your goal of winning an MLS Cup, but also making sure that his value is at an all-time high and that he's,
getting what he's dreaming of.
Getting what he's dreaming of, absolutely.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Real Salt Lake maneuver not just the sale of Xavier Gozo, but I think the ultimate departure of Diego Luna and
Sanabria,
guys like Sanabria. And let's not forget Aiden Herzakani.
Right, and I was going to bring that up with Gozo. If Gozo does leave, that's going to open up so many minutes for him. And we could be having this exact same conversation about him next summer.
There was a report earlier, man, about Brian being interested. And so I'm curious to see how true that report is, and how much interest is actually there from Brighton for Aiden Herzakani.
On the bright side of all of this, we're going to be making a boatload of cash, right?
Yes.
So in the meantime, until the next guy's ready to come up, we can go buy some guys, and we should be okay.
Yeah. Which right now I feel pretty confident that Real Salt Lake will do so.
I think so too. We're not dealing with Deloitte right now. So
yeah. Well, I mean, even just what we saw from Kurt Schmidt and company the last two transfer windows.
Right.
Not counting this winter one, but I mean, I'm talking about the previous years where your failure to bring in a striker and
hit you hard.
Yeah, and the last couple of transfer windows, excluding the one we just had this past, or Real Salt Lake just had this past winter, there were there's some questionable signings in there, some head scratching signings in there.
Agreed.
Guys who failed, and this winter they've redeemed themselves in so many ways.
Right.
And so right now, with what we saw coming in this past winter for Real Salt Lake, I do feel confident that the club will be swift, and will bring in the right pieces to thrive in this new system, which has worked wonders for Real Salt Lake.
And they should have the money to bring in more Sanabrias, right?
Yes.
A few.
Yes.
You know what I mean? No more $1 million signings, right? We should be able to continue to spend the 10, 15 million on positions instead of free transfers all the time.
Give me all the Sanabrias, man. I want them.
It's wild. In years past, he would be the talk of the town. And he's not right now because of others really performing, and I think that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
We don't really realize how special he is. I mean, we do, but it doesn't stand out as much.
No, I think even now he's overlooked a little bit because all the conversation, all the conversation is about Diego Luna. All the conversation about is Xavier Gozo, whether or not he's going to make a World Cup roster, right? You're two World Cup hopefuls, but people forget that there is another World Cup hopeful on this roster, and people forget that, I think it comes down to the fact that he's not banging in goals, right? He's not your consistent scorer.
He's not in a flashy position.
He's not in a flashy position, but he is just as important to Real Salt Lake's success this season. Than just as much as a Xavier Gozo, just as much as a Diego Luna, and not only because he's starting and he's playing fantastic and he's having some really amazing performances, specifically the last two, again, right? This last game against Houston and this last game against Colorado. But honestly, I think he's unlocked another level for Alex Catranis, because when he was out, when Sanabria was unavailable, Catranis came in and played probably his best games that we've seen in a Real Salt Lake jersey too. Mm-hmm. He's pushing Catranis, and Catranis has also been fantastic.
Yep, it's all good. It's great to have competition.
Yep.
You know.
Yep, absolutely. Moving on, man, to the Colorado game. Real Salt Lake gets a 2-1 win against Colorado. A couple of rotational changes again from Real Salt Lake, mostly due to forced hands. Right, no Diego Luna, some muscle tightness held out due to precaution. Morgan Giavogi, I guess leading up to the Colorado game, was sick and couldn't go full 90, but he does end up subbing into the game. But because of the forced changes for Mastroeni, he elects to go with Aiden Herzarkani and keep Gozo into the attack, which I thought was interesting. He could have gone back to the right wing back position, but instead Zach Booth comes in at the right wing back over Dominic Marchik, which both of those guys I thought looked really well against Colorado.
Yeah, Booth surprised me. I was a little worried, right? We haven't seen a lot from him, but I was pretty impressed, right?
Haven't seen him really at that right wing back position.
No, which was why I was nervous.
Ever.
Yeah. But he did well, right? He did seem a little rusty at times, but he wasn't a step slow by any means.
And I think the two biggest changes for Real Salt Lake came across the back line, where you get Justin Glad back from injury, and Gale, who was on the bench against Houston, does get the start, and he returns into the starting lineup for Real Salt Lake against Houston.
Yeah, so, and I know I'm traditionally a hater, but I think he looked good.
Yes.
So
again, I think this game against Colorado, man, it just showed you how deep this Real Salt Lake team really is. We've heard it in the past about how great the Real Salt Lake depth is. I mean, we heard it heading into last season, right, about how good Real Salt Lake's depth is, and it turned out, the season last year was
true.
Yeah, the season last year was a rough one for Real Salt Lake, and
I mean, we had Willie Agata playing, bro. Like,
I know.
Do we even? And I mean, imagine if we had a healthy Ari Peel.
Right. Oh, I haven't even been thinking about Ari Peel, man.
I know.
And you know what? The first two games of the season, man, where he played, he actually looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, this year when people say that this is probably the deepest Real Salt Lake team they've ever seen, I believe it. Because you can sub in a Zach Booth, you can sub in an Aiden Herzarkani when some of your guys are down injured, when players aren't available, and they'll come in, man, and they'll play a really great role.
Or a Griffin Dillon.
Yeah. He was one against Houston that flew under the radar, but he had a great game.
Right. Like, remember, we still haven't seen Emeka Nelly this year.
And yeah, Emeka's missing out of the mix. There's news out of Europe today that Zurich isn't renewing a loan on Nelson Palacio. So does Nelson Palacio come back and fit into that midfield right now that Anelli's out?
I think, no hate to Pablo Ruiz because I love him, but I think Palacio probably fits in a little better as a sub for Spearings.
Right? I would 1,000% agree. And right now, and this isn't a knock to Griffin Dillon, especially not to Luka Moisa, who was fantastic filling in at the beginning of the season. But you would like a little bit more experience in the midfield. You would like a little bit more, I guess, I don't know if polished player is the right word.
Yeah, I prefer the current Dillon Moisa minutes to be substitute appearances, right? Or rotational guys, not everyone's hurt, you're up kind of minutes.
But we'll see where else Lake's plan is with Nelson Palacio. Does he come back and fill in a role now that Emeka Nelly is out until after the World? Well, I guess they'll both be back after the World Cup break. So
I hope. I hate that I'm starting to feel like we may never see Emeka Nelly again.
Oh, don't say that.
I know. I mean, it's probably just me fear mongering to myself, but like it's worrisome, right? It's been a long time.
Oh man. We'll see how he recovers, and we'll see how he is after the World Cup break. Everyone, I think the lack of communication, or the lack of, hey, where's Emeka Nelly, is I think where the worrisome comes from. Where that fear comes from, because no one's talking about Emeka Nelly, and even I was thinking about it during the Colorado game. I was thinking about Emeka Nelly, and I was like, hey, we haven't heard or seen Emeka Nelly in a really long time.
Right, we're not seeing them on the little TikToks they do or any of that stuff. It's concerning, That's
right,
all.
Right. Real Salt Lake's changes and subs, I think, start off the Colorado game a little bit rough, and it comes from what we were talking about earlier with the set piece defense. Josh, you pointed out that this Colorado team was working on their set pieces in warmups at the stadium.
Yep, and someone's been scouting.
Someone has been scouting. Shout out to Matt Wells over there, the new head coach for the Colorado Rapids. He recognizes one of Real Salt Lake's weaknesses, working on set pieces to start off the game, and then sure enough, 5 minutes in, you get a good chance off a set piece. And then 13 minutes in, Colorado scores on a set piece.
Mm-hmm. And, in my head, I'm immediately going, oh, God, here we go again. Right? Which was annoying because I don't think it was definitely against the run of play as well. Right? I don't think Colorado was really looking that dangerous up until that point either. Not that dangerous, right? Not enough to be like, oh, we're going to get rinsed, right? It was just a game at that point.
I actually think, and this isn't how I feel all the time about conceding early, but I actually think conceding early really helped RSL.
Oh, it did, because Colorado made one fatal mistake after they scored that goal.
Yes.
You're 13 minutes in. Why are you going back 5?
You're 13 minutes in and you're time wasting, man.
Time wasting and dropping into a absolute defensive shell.
Absolutely. Colorado,
the flopping and whatnot was a little absurd. Let's be honest. Dude, it was ridiculous.
They were calling every little thing for Colorado, and nothing was getting called for Real Salt Lake.
No, it was getting very annoying for a minute there. I think the second half it settled down a bit.
It did. It definitely did.
But that first 30 minutes, bro, that whistle was blowing for everything.
Colorado was going down, time wasting, man. They were in the defensive shell, and it looked like you're going to be in for a frustrating night. If you're Russell Lake, but luckily, and you don't have Diego Luna, and you're starting a lot of some of these younger guys who maybe necessarily haven't had much of an opportunity this past season or this year in the attack. I'm talking guys like Zach Booth, guys like Aiden Herzerkani, but Real Salt Lake makes the right adjustments, and within 36 minutes, Real Salt Lake are able to tie it up thanks to Xavier Gozo again. Gozo now 4 for 4 goals in 4 games. Sergi Solans getting the assist, but I think the most important part about that goal is we were talking about Zach Booth. The thing that he did the most important against this Colorado team was him pressuring that ball. Takes the deflection off of Zach Booth, and it falls beautifully into Sergi Solans. Maybe a little bit of a lucky bounce, but it goes into Sergi Solans.
Take it, right?
Absolutely. And then Solans finds Gozo inside the box. For a team who's dropping back defensively, allowing probably the best player on the pitch to just run into the 18 just completely unmarked like that, that's on you guys.
It's crazy. That's crazy work.
That's on your bad defending. But Xavier Gozo capitalizes. Puts it in, and it's 1-1.
Let's also be real, though. If Sergi Solans could finish 1v1, right, we're winning 5-1.
How many chances did he have earlier, man? He had like two pretty good. He had like two pretty good chances right before that. Sergi, Pablo, whoever in training, get this man to figure out his 1v1. Whatever yips this kid's got going on in 1v1 situations, you got to get rid of them. Because if Sergi can figure out the 1v1, man, he's
going to be an absolute monster. He'll be the next one getting transferred out. He's already a monster.
You brought up Preston Judd earlier, right? The San Jose guy. For me, heading into the season for the San Jose Earthquakes, I was like, they have no striker. They have nobody playing up top. They're gonna be bad this season. But Preston Judd has figured it out. He's one of the best, better goal scorers right now in Major League Soccer with 9. And if Sergi Solans can figure out how to get the 1v1 going, he is having a Preston Judd season. And we're having the same conversation we're having about Preston Judd and how fantastic he's been, and now he's carrying the San Jose attack. We can have that conversation about Sergi Solans if he can figure out the 1v1s, man.
I mean, it's not like he's doing a bad job goal scoring.
Everything else he's doing everything else he's doing great.
He would be an absolute unit if he could score these 1v1s. He's got the speed. He's got the technical ability everywhere else.
Yep.
Right? He's aggressive. He can hold the ball up. If he could get that 1v1 down, what was the stat Carson sent us before the Colorado game? It was what, 17 missed chances on 1v1s or something like that? Some absurd number.
Yeah, it was something like that.
If he'd scored half of those, he would be in the running for the Golden Boot. You know what I mean?
Oh. He's got 6 goals, leading goal scorer for Elsick right now. 6 goals, 3 assists. He, you can probably make a shout for Sergei being the man of the match against Colorado, having the assist to tie it up, and then of course the game-winning goal. His goal comes in the second half after Russell heads into the halftime break at 1-1. In the 68th minute, there's a cross played in, again, beautifully by Juanma Sanabria, the other guy that I think you could make a case in this game for being man of the match.
Pretty sure he was. He planted the flag, so.
Yeah. Sanabria, his service, his delivery, it's always on point. And Sergei Lantz has become such a reliable aerial threat. Juanma Sanabria puts it in. Sergei Lantz. Okay, I know I just said like it was really great delivery, but it was a little bit behind him. So I will give credit to Sergei on the way that he's able to contort his body and adjust to that ball. That's like a world-class striker recognition and awareness of being able to adjust midair to that ball, and then Sergio Holland just heads it past the Colorado Rapids goalkeeper. It's 2-1. America First Field is losing their minds. It's amazing. Everything about it is amazing.
With how good he is in the air, I really still don't understand how we haven't scored off a corner kick.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Okay, I think that comes back to to something that I noticed. I think it was against the Houston game. Rouselet has to figure out who their set piece guy is.
It's not Griffin Dillon.
It's not Griffin Dillon. I think, unfortunately, right now, no disrespect to Aiden, but it's not Aiden Harris-Arcani, and it's not Diego Luna.
It needs to be Sanabria.
I think it needs to be Juanma.
Yeah, needs to be.
I think it needs to be Juanma. You got to get your set piece guy, and right now the Rouse League doesn't have a set piece guy.
No, I don't even know if we have a PK guy.
I don't think. I don't think they do, considering everything that's happened the last couple of seasons. With Rouse Lake's time and time again being eliminated in penalties.
Right.
When your biggest stars are unreliable at the spot. I think that is a valid question. Who takes your penalties? And
we
I don't
also
know.
haven't really gotten any this year to see.
Exactly. You need a set piece guy. That's what I learned. I think one of the things that I learned from these last 2 games for Real Salt Lake.
I think it's been apparent all season.
Yes. But even more so these last 2 games when Griffin Dillon is, again, no disrespect to Griffin Dillon, but his corners are just going over everybody and coming out the other way.
Right. Same with the free kicks in dangerous spots. We just haven't been dangerous.
Yeah. Give Juanma a chance, man. There was a free kick. I can't remember if it was Colorado or Houston, but one of these last 2 games that just passed. But there was a free kick just outside of the 18, and I was begging for Juanma to stand over it.
No, but it was Aiden, I believe, and he put it right over the top.
Yeah. Which, again, I mean, not a bad effort, but...
No, but let's at least get a test on the goalkeeper at some point.
Right. Be dangerous in set pieces, guys. And defend them better.
Please, for the love.
That
goes back to I really think we need another center back, though. Like, I genuinely think that would help. We need a general,
Yeah. Speaking of which, Justin Glad comes back in the lineup, and I thought he had a really great game. Lucas Engel looked better. He ends up getting subbed out for Sam Junka in the second half, and DeAndre Edlin continues his fantastic run of form. I think the last 2 games that we saw from DeAndre Edlin, this one against Houston, this one against Colorado, by far his best in our RSL kit.
I agree. And outside of the set piece issue, right, our defense did not look horrible really against Colorado at all.
Yeah, and you get back-to-back home clean sheets. after not having them at all to start the season. You go clean sheet against Portland, and then in your next home game, you get a clean sheet against Houston.
Yep. I would have loved one against Colorado, but it is what it is.
Yeah. DeAndre Edlin, man, I think for you trade for this veteran, you make the move for a guy who's been in MLS forever, for a guy who's had a couple tours in Europe, right? Has been with a couple teams in Europe,
played in some World Cups,
played in 2 World Cups, absolutely. Yep. He was disappointing to start off his RSL campaign.
Absolutely.
Looking back to, comparing it to how he was his first 8 games with the club compared to where he is now, it was disappointing to start, and I thought, maybe it was just a tribute to his age getting, catching up to him a little bit. He's not the DeAndre Edlin you knew at Seattle, right? He's not that guy anymore.
Right.
And so I just thought maybe this is the DeAndre that you were going to get now, and he's completely turned it around. I think to have a much better second, much better start to the season for Real Salt Lake. Unfortunately, he got injured to start off the year, but the last 2 games from DeAndre Edlin have been by far the best he's been in RSL kit, and I think if he continues to play the way that he's playing, man, he's going to be one of those locks and one of those guys you feel really confident about having in your back line.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were all really hoping we would see this from him at some point, right?
Yes, and it's finally coming around.
Yep.
Great to see from DeAndre Edlin. Great to see from Real Salt Lake. 7 wins, 1 loss at America First Field this season, amongst the best in Major League Soccer, amongst the best when it comes to playing games at home. Now, if Real Salt Lake can just figure out how to find that magic on the road, I think Real Salt Lake are going to be in a really good spot.
Or even just, to be able to get some draws away,
and not get absolutely embarrassed on the road at Dallas.
Right.
Yeah. And they got a test for it coming up this weekend. James Rodriguez less Minnesota United. Of
that
course,
did not last long.
Yeah, the big storyline, of course, for Minnesota the last couple of weeks has been James Rodriguez being, released, quote unquote, released from his contract to head to the World Cup. He will not return to Minnesota after the World Cup. I think he probably retires at this point.
At this point, who, as a club, why would you even sign him?
Right. It was pretty obvious that he was just playing for this 2026 World Cup, Well,
which is crazy because did he really even play?
Right. And that's
what I mean?
That's the thing too, is like he didn't play all that much with Minnesota.
No.
The big story, of course, is that James Rodriguez is no longer a part of this Minnesota team as he was released to go get ready for the World Cup. He ends up his Minnesota career with just 6 games played and 2 assists. But you know what, though? In those 6 games that he did play, I specifically watched the Austin game where he subs in and gets 2 assists.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
And they were down 2-0. They were down to 0. He subs in, he gets 2 assists, and leaves his stamp in that way. But the reality is James Rodriguez's stint in Minnesota was a little bit disappointing. And I think Minnesota's home form this season is uber disappointing. Just 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. One of the worst teams at home so far this season in MLS play. Real Salt Lake, one of the worst teams on the road in MLS play so far this season. And so I think, strength versus strength. Bad team at home, right. Bad team on the road. We're going to find out who wins.
I think it's a very winnable game for Real Salt Lake, though.
I do, too.
Minnesota is not the Minnesota of years past. I think their rebuild's going it's a little off course at the moment.
Yeah, just 1 win since the end of April.
Yeah. Again, very winnable game.
Or I guess mid-April.
It'll be very disappointed if we don't. I will be very disappointed if we don't get some points from this one.
I think you have to, so that way you head into the break on a little bit of a high,
Right. I don't want to go into this break on a loss. That would be not good.
Yeah, then you have to sit on that loss until July.
Right. That's a long time.
Yeah. Plus, with Real Salt Lake being where they are right now on the table, I think it's a massive 6-point swing, right? If you can go on the road, deny Minnesota some points, and continue to cement yourself in as one of the top 4 in the Western Conference, I think that's what this game is for. It's to head into the World Cup break with a lot of confidence, and to head into the World Cup break as one of those teams who are going to be fighting for home advantage when it comes to the playoffs, right? In a top 4 spot in the Western Conference, in a very congested Western Conference. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last time we recorded, but it just keeps getting more and more tight, more and more congested, and that's just what you expect from a Western Conference who has a lot of really good teams.
Yep, it's very valuable points coming back with unsure roster decisions, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a very busy schedule when the league starts back up again. Right? You just got to set yourself up for that time period. It's just a massive game, really, this early in the season.
If it wasn't against if it wasn't against a Western Conference team, I don't think we're having the same conversation. But because it is on the road against a team that a direct rival, right, that you play in the Western Conference, like that is what makes this game so much more important and so much more massive. And so you look at the table right now in the Western Conference, and just 6 points separate the top of the table and ninth place.
Right. It's massive 3 points.
So that's how big and how important a 6 point swing would be right now. Going on the road to Minnesota and getting those 3 points, and they'd be insanely valuable for Real Salt Lake heading into the second half of the season when they return to MLS action play in July. Plus, I think I want to say it was DeAndre Edlin who mentioned it in the post-game press conference after the win over Colorado. The team knows that you have an extended break after this Minnesota game, and so you have to go to Minnesota on the road, a team who's already struggling to find results on the road. In the last couple of games, they know that it's super important to go out there and empty out the tank. Make sure you leave it all out there before the World Cup break. He was talking about it, and so I'm very excited to see what else they can do on the road against Minnesota.
Yeah, I would expect a very close to first choice lineup, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, if Luna is having some muscle issue, they're probably not going to risk him for his World Cup journey if he is, for sure going, which I get, but also I feel like he should be on the field if he can, right? Just to be as sharp as he can be for the World Cup.
I think he feels the same way. I think Pablo feels the same way.
Right. So I don't think they're going to make the wrong decision there, right? They'll obviously weigh that with the physio and with how he's feeling, but yeah, I really do think we should see the strongest lineup possible. There should be no rotating of the squad for this one. And I'm hoping for a good game.
Real Salt Lake taking on Minnesota. It is an early game, 2:30 kickoff over there, or I guess Mountain Time. You can catch the game on Apple TV. It is Real Salt Lake's last game before you head into the extended World Cup break. A lot of things happening around Major League Soccer that I kind of want to hit on real quick. And Josh, I sent this to you guys a little bit earlier today, but how about MLS in early discussions to a potential stopping the clock when it comes to time wasting?
How about no? No.
So the report is MLS has had preliminary discussions with the IFAB, which is the governing, rules body of soccer, about potentially using a stopped clock during matches. Massive change that would obviously impact how the clock works in the world of soccer, and so you would essentially stop the clock for time wasting. And I think everybody's complained about having 10 minutes of added time since we've entered the VAR era and the big stoppage era. So this would help mitigate that. Essentially, you'd stop the clock and there would be a lot less added time. Which
it would help that. I'm only okay with this change if it's for you stop the clock during a VAR situation or like a severe injury.
Yeah, I think you would have to.
Right, but like, you're telling me you're going to stop the clock when the goalkeeper's taking his sweet ass time to take a goal kick?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, no.
No, I think you would still play. I think it would still roll during those situations.
Right, but like, are they going to completely eliminate stoppage time, period? You know what I mean? That's the question I have. I haven't really looked into it. I'm really okay with it if it's just for VAR reviews or whatever. So you're not getting those huge chunks, but
I think that just opens up a different conversation about how VAR checks need to be limited.
agreed.
Why
Or
are we spending 5 to 6 minutes looking at a play when it's supposed to be, the definition is supposed to be clear and obvious?
clear and obvious. Yep.
If you're spending 5 to 6 minutes at the monitor, it's not clear and obvious.
Correct. Right. I think this isn't identifying the root of the problem.
Yes.
And that's the problem I have with it. So,
I do think you would have a lot less situations of what you saw one of the Colorado players do at America First Shield this past Saturday, where he's down on the field for an extended period of time. This is what we're talking about with Colorado time wasting, right? With there's a Rapids player down for an extended period of time, and it's a clear time wasting tactic, as it was Hamzat who was down, number 8 for Colorado, and then gets an earful from the home fans as
and he was giving it back too. He was like, he was pumping the field at one point, like, bro.
That I missed. I missed, but I did see him going chirping back at the fans.
Yep, like, dog, we're booing you because you're wasting time.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
The goalkeeper got an earful, which I loved.
But see, imagine that. Like, imagine, him being down and the clock stops. You would be less inclined to do the time wasting. I need the physio to come on and take a look at this, right?
Yeah, I understand, but at the same time, I just don't see how. I don't see my problem is, like, do you stop the clock every time someone, like, goes down with a little wiggle? You know what I mean? Or the goal. How do you prevent the other time wasting that isn't so obvious? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think you look at the college game, you look at the high school game, and every time there is a player down, immediately, like, if there's a player down behind the play, the clock will stop.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what you're looking for. And that can obviously, again, save you some time with guys like Hamza, who's down, clearly trying to get the physio to come on to try to waste some time. You're up 1-0 on the road. You're just sitting there. You're just sitting
20
there.
minutes into the game.
You're just sitting there feeding off the fans booing you, rather than actually waiting for actual treatment. And that, I think, would cause players to differentiate. Oh, do I actually really need the physio? Or, hey, if the clock stopped, then there's no point for me of sitting on the floor and waiting for the physio.
Right. Which I definitely agree with, but I'm just going to go back to the goalkeeper wasting time at the end of the game, right? Are we still going to get 2 minutes of stoppage time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or are we just going to start seeing goalkeepers get sent off all the time? I don't know.
You know what? We don't get enough of keepers getting sent off for a double.
We don't.
We definitely don't. Goalkeepers should be referees shouldn't be reluctant to give a second yellow to a goalkeeper if he's wasting time at the end. That's just me.
I think they wait too long to throw the first yellow for time wasting, period.
Yeah.
I think they're way too reluctant for that. I mean, I know, what was it last year? We got someone sent off for time wasting. That was infuriating, but
oh man, I can't even remember who it was, but it was a second yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that egregious of time wasting, but like that's the problem, right?
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yes. So that would help, curb that out of the game, is, I think, the approach that MLS is trying to take.
Right, but how would you know when to stop the clock if someone's taking their time on a throw-in? If the clock stops after 5 seconds, it's an automatic yellow, and then there you go. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think that's something that you'd have to outline clearly in the rule. Yeah, in the rule if you do decide to adapt this. But right now it sounds like it's still in the early stages. It's still in the early planning, so we'll see if that's a route that MLS decides to do, if they do want to trial that. And I guess see how it goes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Casemiro?
Oh,
listen, I'm for a league that really wants to get away from this retirement league tag. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore Casemiro. Right? You got to stop bringing these guys in. But if you want to keep bringing them in, they've got to be able to go to teams that aren't 3 of the teams in the league.
Right.
That is the issue I'm having. Why are there only a handful of teams that are allowed to pick these guys up?
The issue I'm having...
And the discovery rights.
No, you know what?
Bro. Who hasn't discovered Casemiro?
This is the one time I'm not upset at discovery rights.
Except for who has his rights?
The Galaxy. The Galaxy. Yeah,
That's part of the issue.
This isn't a situation where I'm upset about I'm
upset about the whole situation. But how the hell is Miami? How are you going to trick me into thinking they have cap space for Casemiro?
There you go. That is my issue with the Casemiro.
Stop lying to us about you caring about salary caps.
That is my issue with the salary with the Casemiro news. It's the fact that Miami has no DP spots. Miami has no U22 spots open. Where are they getting the money to fund Casemiro? Where are they finding the salary room?
He's a GAM player. Okay.
No.
Just like Gareth Bale was a GAM player for LAFC.
I promise you, if that happens, it's going to be a Gareth Bale situation.
It's going to be.
If it's going to be, we're going to sign him for 6 months on a GAM deal, and then next season in the summer or in the winter when we can open up a DP spot, we'll give him a DP spot.
It's ridiculous, dude. I hate this league so much sometimes. The favoritism from the league, and I understand you want players in big markets. It's going to make them money. I don't know. Throw someone a bone.
Yeah,
I think Thomas Mueller going to Vancouver was kind of a shocker, right? Because it was Vancouver.
Yeah, and that, you know what, and that's good for the league.
It's good for the league. Spread them out.
That is great for the league.
Because guess what? If there's more star players on more teams, more people show up and have more opportunities to show up.
Yeah.
Instead of Super Team A, Super Team B, Super Team A visits Salt Lake City one time in 5 years of their existence. You know what I mean?
Oh man, if it gets cleared and he ends up going to Inter Miami, I've lost all hope for MLS. As far as
my hope was lost a long time ago.
As far as I guess, I don't know if credibility is the right word, but I guess
it's credibility.
You know, it just seems like you're making exceptions for the big teams to bring in whatever and whomever they please, and then.
But if we were to go over $1, we'd have to release Lucas Moisa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, especially when Inter Miami was in a situation where they've already been penalized in the past for breaking the rules.
Right.
When they, before Messi, before Inter Miami was the Inter Miami you have today, they sucked.
Right. But if Lionel Messi wants Casemiro to join him, the league is not going to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, they were bad and they screwed up and they were over the salary, whatever salary cap MLS seems to have to exist. They broke some rules with who was the player? I can't even remember, but they got in trouble.
I can't remember either. I know which situation you're talking about.
Yeah,
It was comical that it was that player too.
Yes, it was a player who didn't work out in MLS. And he ended up
driving me nuts.
I'm gonna have to look it up, because it's gonna drive me nuts too. He was Argentine. Anyway, they already got penalized in the past for breaking the rules, and now we're just making exceptions for them to bring in whomever they want. Oh, Matias Pellegrini.
That's right.
Matias Pellegrini, the first ever DP in Inter Miami history. They got in trouble for breaking the rules with him, and then here we are. And we've just completely forgotten that Inter Miami was in that situation, and now they can have the flexibility to bring in whomever they want because Lionel Messi plays on that team.
Yep, who doesn't even seem to appreciate his own fans, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh yeah, and then what the hell was that this past weekend?
I don't know, man, but him refusing to acknowledge them blows my mind. I don't understand the whole situation, but I'm gonna lean towards the supporters and believe them straight up because that's how I am. But
yeah, well, the drama was that they haven't won before this Portland game. They hadn't won at home, and they hadn't won at their new stadium.
Right.
And anytime that they did media availability after home games, anytime that they players were speaking to the press about their struggles at home, it was guys like Noah Allen It was
Right.
young players that they're not the stars. The reality is that they're not the guys that people are there to see. Um, and
And the
and Ian
stars
and
were
Ian Frey and the stars were dodging media
they
availabilities.
were also just like dipping right after the game. They weren't
Yeah,
sticking around and clapping. They weren't doing anything. They just straight down the tunnel, right?
right. And so obviously that upset the fans. The fans against the Portland game or at the Portland game made their vocal displeasures known. Um, and I think a lot of it finally came to a little bit of a halt when you finally get that first win off your back and you take down Portland.
Right. But even like I remember seeing a clip of like DePaul like acknowledging him and trying to get Messi to do it, and he was like, no,
Yeah,
and telling his own players
yeah.
to not either. So I don't know.
I don't remember what they were chanting. I don't remember what they were chanting mid game too. But the Apple TV broadcast clearly got Messi like signaling to
Right.
the fans.
Which come on,
Midway,
Messi.
yeah, halfway through the
Come on.
game, and yeah, it's not a good look.
I my Messi fatigue is getting realer and realer as we go.
Yeah, I can't wait for. I think a lot of teams, a lot of fans across Major League Soccer who don't support Inter Miami, I think a lot of them are ready for what MLS looks like after Lionel Messi.
Same. It might become, I don't know, a league where everyone's important again. I don't know.
Yeah. And I do like that they are marketing the All-Star game without Messi. I don't know if
Yes,
you've caught that, Josh.
I have.
I'm very anti MLS All-Star.
I love the skills challenge though. I think it's
yeah.
I do love that.
I think you've moved past the need for an All-Star game. I think you've moved past the want for an All-Star game. I don't know if there's a lot of MLS fans who really care for MLS All-Star anymore.
I think it's fun when you have a player that gets to be involved, but when it's not East versus West, you're leaving a lot of guys that deserve it out.
Yeah.
Right. It
Right
just
now
becomes a popularity contest.
it is. It is a popularity contest.
It's not who's the best player; it's who recognizes your name.
But there are 3 Real Salt Lake players currently in that mix of the popularity contest. Speaking to Diego Luna, who's top 5 at his position in votes. Speaking to DeAndre Yedlin, who's top 5 right now at his position in votes. And Juanma Sanabria, who's top 5 in his position in votes. So there are some Real Salt Lake players.
Let's be real. Let's be real. Just like with Demir, right? Most guys, if they're going to make it from an RSL side, are going to have to be like a coach's choice or a commissioner's choice, because fans aren't going to select them unless they know ball, right?
Yeah. I do appreciate fans though recognizing the importance of Yedlin and Sanabria though, for those two to be the top voted at at the right back and the left back, and maybe
it's great,
and
it's
maybe
great.
too a little of it might factor into the fact that the right back and left back play in Major League Soccer isn't that great to begin with, but still, I think if you're Sanabria, if you're Yedlin, if you're Rouse Lake, you'll take that recognition from 2 of your better players this season.
No, absolutely. I won't knock them for that at all.
Yeah.
But
real quick, Josh, to wrap things up, looking across Major League Soccer, Montreal loses 2-0 at home to Chicago Fire. Charlotte with a 3-1 win over Toronto. A 1-1 draw between St. Louis and DC United. A 2-1 win for the New England Revolution over Real Lake's next opponent in Minnesota. 1-1 draw between Orlando and Atlanta United. 1-1 draw between Philadelphia and Columbus. 1-1 draw for New York Red Bulls and New York City FC. 2-1 win for Sporting Kansas City over Austin. Austin, who moves on from Nico Estevez, decides to go a different direction as far as the head coaching goes, which I thought was an interesting move, because the reality is Austin should be better than where they are right now on the table with the roster they have. I get that they've been dealing with a couple of injuries, like a Brandon Vasquez, who's been unavailable for a large majority of his return back to Major League Soccer. But wild timing to do it right before the World Cup, too. I think
absolutely.
Yeah, Nico Estevez out at Austin FC. Houston with a 1-0 win over Vancouver. Vancouver's Takayoka, the goalkeeper, sent off in that game. And LA Galaxy with a 2-0 win over Seattle Sounders. Rouse Lake with a 2-1 win over Colorado. San Diego with a 3-3 draw against Cincinnati. San Jose loses off a last-minute winner from Sam Sarver. Again, Sam Sarver putting his name on the
punished Real Salt Lake.
Yeah, putting his name on the score sheet after punishing Real Salt Lake late in the game. Gets a late winner against San Jose. Fans decide to throw Modelo's onto the fields. He picks up the Modelo, starts pouring all over himself in celebration, and then now he has a deal with Modelo. Bunch of Modelos arrived at Sam Server's house per his Instagram. He's living life, man.
He's the new Breck Shea for them.
Yeah, he's loving life. Inter Miami with a 2-0 win over Portland, as we were talking about, and then Nashville with a 3-2 win over LAFC, which means in the Western Conference, Vancouver at the top with 29 points, San Jose in second with 29, in third, Real Salt Lake with 25, and fourth, Seattle Sounders with 24, fifth, what a climb from FC Dallas, man. They're now sitting in fifth place with 22 points, in sixth, Houston Dynamo with 21, LAFC down to seventh with 21 points,
wild.
Minnesota in eighth with 21, and then the Galaxy in a playoff spot with 19 points. Just below them, San Diego with 17, Colorado with 16.
Man, San Diego's fall off is also crazy.
They got to get rid of Chucky, man.
They really do.
You got to do whatever you can to open up that DP spot and bring in somebody who's going to contribute, because it's ridiculous that one of the highest earning players in Major League Soccer is completely frozen out of his club. We've already seen it in the past, man, with Insigne, right? And
Giovinco at one point, if I remember correctly.
Was he ever frozen out? I can't remember if he was.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking of Insigne, but yeah, it's crazy that they're just getting held hostage like that.
Either release him or play him.
Yep. Like, get over whatever personal beef you have going.
Because all that money that you're spending on his on his weekly checks, it can go to somebody who's actually productive and actually gets you wins and actually gets you playing good soccer, because the ship is sinking for San Diego. And you got to figure something out.
Same convo we had about Diogo.
Absolutely.
Other than he wasn't frozen out, but you know what I mean. Like, you can't keep a DP that isn't producing.
No.
Not in this league.
Not in a league where it's driven by DP play and how good your
right.
designated players are.
Right.
How much longer does Marc Dos Santos have at LAFC?
I don't know, man. Can't have that much longer. There's no reason they should be in seventh.
Absolutely not.
That's shocking.
I get your fixture congestion has finally caught up to you. But ultimately I think I think there's going to be a scapegoat, and I think it's going to be Marc Dos Santos.
Right, but even with the fixture congestion, right? Like, it's not like you're performing well in one fixture, like in one competition and not the other.
No, you just
fell off.
Completely fallen off since that 4-0 loss to Toluca.
Right. And that's a problem. You have too much talent on that team to fall off like that.
I don't know if I've ever seen LAFC lose 4 games straight.
Probably not.
And now here they are on a 4-game losing streak.
Well, kind of love it for them.
Wild. I still think they'll be in the mix, like when it's all said and done. Like,
oh, absolutely. They're gonna go after this World Cup. They're gonna sign some players, right? They'll probably
might have a new coach.
They'll be fine.
Yeah,
but yeah,
wild.
It's crazy.
Wild to see LAFC where they are now. Josh, anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to throw out there before we wrap this up? It's been a long one, but there's been a lot of really good discussions. But any last things you want to add?
No, I think, since we missed last week, it was good to do a little bit of a longer show today. And we got to figure out what we're going to do during the World Cup break, right? I don't want to fully take the time off, right? We can probably talk some U.S. men's national team. Maybe we'll be lucky and finally get some interviews going again. That could be fun. So, yeah, that's really all I got.
And that's going to do it for us here on the RSL Show. Don't forget to go like. Don't forget to go subscribe. Don't forget to go follow. Don't forget to go do what you have to do to follow the RSL Show for the best RSL content. And we'll talk to you guys after the Minnesota game to wrap up the first portion of this 2026 MLS season.